This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my column to the Colorado Springs Independent, all the other podcasts I've done, my photography website. You can also send me an email or a comment if you have an idea for a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on the podcast. You can do all of that at hikingbob.com. And you can help support this podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. And depending on your level of support, you can get a nice reward for being a supporter of the podcast. And I would greatly appreciate it because it helps pay the bills to keep doing this podcast. Today we're going to touch on a slightly different topic than we normally do here. We're going to have some guests, a multitude of guests on the podcast today. And it's going to be done in a couple different parts, so it's been in the works for a while. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence and photography, which if you're rolling your eyes, just hang on, because we're going to talk about how that might affect your user experience if you're coming here to visit the Pikes Peak region. But first, I thought it was a good idea that we discuss what AI photography actually is. So I gathered some of the best photographers in the Colorado Springs area. I'm not one of those, but I got some good photographers here. There are probably famous names you know if you scroll through social media here in Colorado Springs. With me today is Daniel Forster. Say hi, Daniel.
Thanks for having me here, Bob.
Jae Jarratt.
Hello.
And Jason Fazio.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
So, you guys, let's start off with a quick discussion about what do we call AI photography. And I'll start off real quick by saying not all AI photography is bad. We use tools in our editing of our pictures that are AI, whether they get rid of noise in the picture or sharpening it a little bit. Does everybody seem to think that that's an okay use of the new tools that are out there with our stuff?
Hey, Bob, I'll speak for myself and say that particularly I really like some of the AI tools that exist. I've gone to them for things such as object removal or maybe a little bit of sharpening or something like that. I actually have no problems. As a matter of fact, even some of social media had issues with it at first. If you would even use some of those, some little tools like that, they were flagging you as AI generated. Well, AI generated is way different to me than removing a yield sign out of my nature scene. You know what I'm saying?
So some tools that are AI are pretty good. What do you guys, Daniel and Jay, what do you guys think?
So I don't think that my photos would exist without them currently. It's just something, it's part of my process whenever I shoot photos and I'm done, especially if I'm printing something. I'm running it through some sort of AI, whether it's a denoise or a sharpening app, but it's not adding stuff into the photo. It's just making it cleaner. It's making lines look better, noise reduction, stuff like that, but it's not adding stuff in that's making the photo unrealistic.
Well, I think I agree with these guys just on the general tools function, modifying things that we already had a remove tool in that we were able to remove dust spots and things like that. The Adobe suite added that functionality with an AI function, so it's just better. So removing that dust spot now, it does a better job with the AI processing. The difference is with AI art generation, we're not doing any kind of generated fill or, at least I'm not, adding bits to my photos from some AI engine in the background. Those, even when it removes a dust spot, it's pulling data from my photo to put into that spot. It's not getting it from the cloud. It's not coming from somewhere else, which is I think really powerful to have that, the denoise function that Jay was talking about. Those things are really, those are just processing tools as opposed to adding something new to the photo. So I really appreciate those and use the, like Jay said, that's how I process things. So as far as adding things, I'm not a fan of it was very strange when Adobe added a generative fill right to the processing tools, right into Photoshop. You could just go in there and select the lake and say, add a kayaker, Like, that's just bonkers to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So I guess the issue becomes that there are these tools that make our pictures better. I also agree with you, Jay, that if it wasn't for denoise or sharpening, and I know you hear people like get it right in the camera. Well, we all try to get it right in the camera, but things move and you bump something or you hit the wrong spot on your screen and it's focusing 10 feet further than you want it to. There's all these tools. They're helping us make the pictures that we take be better. I don't think anybody has an issue with that. But like you mentioned, Daniel, is when all of a sudden that lake has a canoe in it that wasn't there before, or we were talking prior to this, there's been pictures generated over the last couple of months on social media that say they're Garden of the Gods when they're clearly not.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to throw out some examples of some of that stuff, I don't know. Go ahead, Jay.
I would love to throw out an example. There's a photo going around right now on Facebook that is generated from the Grand Tetons, and then it has kangaroos, and it's labeled Garden of the Gods. So, I mean, it's something that you look at, and it's so ridiculous when you see it that it makes you mad, and you want to go on to that, and you want to comment, and all it's doing is it's getting that page more attention. Those pages on Facebook are monetized, and that's their intention, is to get you to be upset by seeing something like that. But that's kind of where we're at with Facebook right now, and the more and more we're on it, the more and more we see it, and we can't seem to get away from it no matter what we're doing.
So what do we do, right? If you even hesitate while scrolling and you're trying to figure out what this image is, well, they're getting paid. If you complain in the comments, they're getting paid. If you dislike it, I don't care what you do, they're getting paid. So I guess you really have to just accept that it's going to be there and stick to what you do and stick to what makes you different, makes you authentic. And that's all we can really do, As far as AI in general goes, though, just in general, it's affecting me. The other day I took a photo that 6 months ago I would not have taken because I knew I could get away with it. So what does that do to the new photographer? Does it affect fundamentals? Because I can be a lot more relaxed with my photography now, and I can get away with just about anything.
Well, when you say get away with, what were you getting away with?
Oh, for instance, edge guarding, like checking out, maybe you got some branches coming into your scene, or maybe there's some movement in this or that. You don't really have to have the perfect composition to get the perfect image, because some of these tools, like Daniel mentioned, the generative side of the removal tools is amazing. Let's say like the old spot removal. I used it today, but I also had some pieces that I was going to remove that I knew it wasn't going to work for. But I also knew I had that generative tool in my back pocket, so I didn't worry about it. And it really has affected my composition selection.
But you're not faking the picture. It's still the picture you took.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't use the AI tool. I use the clone stamp, which is definitely old school way to do it because I don't want to get that tag in there. But the clone stamp works fine for a lot of things, dust spotting.
That's the way we used to do. That's the way we used to take out power lines.
Right.
Clone stamp.
That scratch remover would just run it across the power lines. Poof, they disappear. And I want to make it clear that I don't necessarily have speaking personally. I don't necessarily have an issue with the people who go out and they AI generate an image. If you want to put kangaroos in the Grand Tetons, I'm not here to dictate what somebody's idea of art is. I think the issue we all sit here and have is, and we'll be talking to somebody from the tourist branch of things here in Colorado Springs, is when they take that picture that Jay pointed out of the kangaroos in the Grand Tetons, but then they label it the Garden of the Gods. Well, and this is an extreme case. We'll mention, I don't think anybody who sees that picture is going to come to the Garden of the Gods and expect to see a kangaroo. There was one that was floating around for a while last year that had an elephant in it. I'm pretty sure, unless they escaped from the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, they haven't yet. I don't think anybody's going to expect to see elephants in the Garden of the Gods. This isn't Africa where elephants are. But there's other things that happen out there. It could happen. I'm not going to say it couldn't. But there are other things that happen out there where things are shifted, the rocks are shifted, roads are changed, and things like that. That is the issue. To me, it's the dishonesty of the labeling of a place that actually, if somebody said, my opinion again, you guys may feel free to voice your opinion. My opinion is if they said, I was inspired by the Garden of the Gods. Okay. I was inspired by the Grand Tetons, or my vision of, but when it just says Garden of the Gods, or Pikes Peak, or the Grand Tetons, or Zion National Park, then we're talking about a whole different thing where it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there is how do you get a big behemoth like Meta to stop doing that, right? Because those people would not be doing that, I think, in my opinion, if they weren't getting paid. If they were not having some sort of creator fund, like dispersing money to these people that get comments and likes on their on AI art, I don't think they would be doing it. They would have no incentive to sit there and spend their time doing it. There's literally no reason other than that. The fact that it's pushed to us so much right now when we're browsing, we're on social media platforms, it tells me that Meta specifically is pushing it for some reason. They want people to get overwhelmed with this. They want everyone to get used to, in my opinion, seeing this AI art coming through. And it's not gonna, no one's gonna stop what you're saying. No one's gonna stop changing the title because they know they're gonna get the clicks, they're gonna get comments. No, this is not Garden of the Gods, and that gets the money, just like they were saying. So it's not. I just don't see, unless the powers that be are gonna change that. It's going to stay. We're going to have to find a different system or just stop caring about it.
Right. And Daniel, good point. The other part of this is, of course, we're talking about Meta, who, hey, they just got rid of all their fact checkers. So the people who you could complain to and say this is not the Garden of the Gods are gone. And because for some reason Zuckerberg seems to think that, well, it'll take care of itself. Well, I don't have any faith in the system taking care of itself.
Maybe with community notes, this will get fixed.
Yeah. Maybe we can find a way around it. So we're talking about a couple different things here. One is that there are some tools in AI that are good tools. We've talked about that. They help us make the pictures we actually really shoot better pictures. And then there are this fakery, which is, it's somebody's idea of art that they do in the computer, and that's okay. It's the labeling of it the wrong way. But then we get to another point is, how does it affect all of us sitting around here as photographers who go out and take the real pictures and use them to either sell or to teach people or to whatever. Sometimes the Tourism Bureau uses them, or we sell them to magazines, or some of mine get done in magazines. Some of sell them. However way we do it. How does this kind of affect a photographer who wants to go out and learn the real craft and maybe try to make a living at it? What do you think is the effect that that's going to have?
So I think first and foremost, the AI stuff creates a false, it's unrealistic. It's an unrealistic expectation that you're going to have if you're going into photography and you're looking at these images that are generated to be perfect. I feel like when we go out and we shoot, perfect is hard to do. There's a lot of things that are going to have to work in our favor for that to work out. We need good light. We need a good composition. We need not a lot of people running around, even though we can remove them with AI tools. So I feel like that's the biggest thing for me is just kind of people's expectations might be different because of what they're seeing online that is AI generated versus what they're going to see in their camera when they're taking the photos.
So I've refused to incorporate AI into any of my instruction. Like if I'm going to teach somebody how to remove, say somebody goes to a public spot that's pretty popular, say Garden of the Gods, and they set up, they got this composition ready. If the lighting's pretty consistent, I'm going to teach them how to shoot a shot, wait a second, shoot another shot. And if you got an image with an individual on the left side of it, and then you got an image of the same individual on the right side of it, that means you also have an image with them not there and not there. So you could do it the old way, and I teach it the old way. Now, you can fall back on some of these AI tools, that's great. Maybe it increases your workflow speed. That's great. But as far as like fundamentals, I don't touch it. And I do feel, because that's why I touched on it earlier about how I've taken a few shots here recently that I might not have been able to take before, I do feel that it will impact the new photographer on a fundamental level.
But what you're talking about is part of the, teaching basic photography. I mean, it's like, you maybe have a branch in a way. Well, that's part of your composition as you move in, you move out, or ahead of time that you might crop that a little bit to get that out of the way. I think that again, using the AI tools if you're in a spot where you can't move and you're going to get that in there, but you're going to have a branch sticking in there, that's going to be distracting to the image. There's a way to get rid of that. Jay, you teach photography at the Garden of the Gods. So I guess what I want to ask you is, as you teach that at the Garden of the Gods, suppose you have somebody you're doing a workshop this coming summer. They've been seeing photos, AI generative photos of Garden of the Gods that are not realistic, and somebody's going to come to you to one of your workshops and show you their cell phone and say, "Show me where that is. I want to get that picture," and it doesn't exist.
That's a tough one, just because I unfortunately would just be the one that was breaking the bad news that doesn't exist, and that I'll try to get them to some cool spots that do exist. But I think that the further this goes along with the development of AI, it's just going to become more problematic for all of us, because the AI is going to get better. So luckily we're at a spot right now where it's still fairly easy for us to notice it. So, we can explain to people, hey, this is fake or whatever. But I'm afraid that there's going to be a point in the near future where it's a lot harder for anybody to tell what's real and what's not. And I think that's where we're going to have some issues, but we're not quite there yet.
There was a picture floating around last year on social media, which had a picture, for those of you familiar with the Garden of the Gods, of the Siamese twins, and through the Siamese twins they had the kissing camels. Do you remember that picture?
Yeah.
Now, everybody here is laughing because not only does that not exist, but it's geographically impossible. There's like a hill and another hill and a bend in the road and
if you fly.
Yeah, it's impossible for that to happen. Now, was it a good-looking picture? Yeah. I mean, it was done well. I thought it looked pretty good, but completely
made up.
Completely made up. So I guess that's my concern here is as photographers, do we have a role in? Again, I don't want to be the censorship police. I don't want to tell people they can't do this and they can't post this. But when again it goes back to labeling them, do we have a role in this somewhere on combating the false information part of it? Knowing that Meta is not going to do anything to help us because they are paying people because they're making money and they've gotten rid of their fact checkers. What is the role of the photographer in this, do you think?
I think from my point of view, until there is something like the community notes aspect of like actually calling it out, I don't know that there is necessarily, and I don't know. From my point of view, I think I've just come with a whole different plan, which is just continue to stay authentic, continue to try to build a following of people that know who I am, and really working towards just showcasing my work, and it's coming from me. Like, this is not, I go out in the field with my camera, put it on a tripod, plan the shoot like Jay's talking about with the sunset or sunrise, got the good light, go back to the desk and process that photo. Like, that process should be something, that we are somehow communicating to people that are interested. Not everyone's going to be interested anymore, and that is just the way it is. I mean, there have been other innovations, in past society that have negated jobs, and that might just happen with certain things. And the more that we can just continue to see where the value is that people appreciate, I think is where my attention is going to be on. There's no point in me going around continually saying, this is AI, this is AI. Like, people say that on my photos sometimes. It's like, what is the point? Like, you sit on Facebook all day long calling, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. I'm reminded of when, the transition hit where digital photography became a thing that was actually commercially viable. And I mean, at the start, it was a 1 megapixel point-and-shoot camera. Canon came out with the 10D, 6.3 megapixel. I bought one of those. And I still have the raw files. They're still actually not too terrible. They're small. I'm not going to be making any big wall-sized prints with that. But on the other hand, there are AI tools to do that. There you go. And there was the concern when we went from film to digital, that people are going to, a lot of contests, no digital pictures. Why not? And there were concerns that digital photography was going to be easily manipulated. And I think I think a lot of people realized that what you were doing on the computer with a digital image was the same thing that some lab person was doing with a film image. The only difference was you didn't know that was being done because you didn't see it, and you couldn't do it yourself. Right. So we've been through these big changes in this craft before. Film to digital was the biggest thing, to the point where, like you mentioned, Daniel, about people getting out of jobs. Kodak stopped making Kodachrome film, which could only be processed in a handful of places in the world. I absolutely loved it, and to this day, I bemoan that it's gone. I don't shoot film, but I'm sorry that people don't get to experience that was available. Kodachrome 25 on 120 size film was, you could make it as big as you wanted, and there was not a speck of grain. It was beautiful. Nice. I bemoan the days that we don't have that. I mean, I shot that, but I don't bemoan But on the other hand, digital is actually, in a lot of ways, better.
Well, we might actually get there. We might be those dinosaurs that are in the same way pulling out 4x5s with the big, accordion style, whatever that thing is on there, those cameras. Like, that might be us in the future.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And I'm okay with that, because I didn't get into this necessarily to make money or get paid for this. This is just, it's always been about art for me and creating something interesting that people enjoy, traveling, enjoying outside. So it would be fine if that was what ended up being. There's definitely a lot of issues around that. And like you were saying, like, how does this impact us directly?
Right.
Like, there's other things that definitely impact us because we've all kind of shaped our lives around what we're doing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, I mean, who am I to say where the industry goes?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about people calling your images out for being fake or AI generated. And I've gotten to where I just have to respond to them. I'm like, hey, I don't blame you for having the attitude that you have. On one hand, do I take it as a compliment that you think the image is good enough to be fake? Or do I feel bad that your instant reaction is to think it's fake? I mean, the other day I got called out a couple times. Hey, this has got to be fake. I'm like, man, I froze my butt off. 10 degrees, waiting on the sun. No, it's not fake. But hey, yeah, thanks for the compliment.
I'm glad you like my picture. I'm sorry you think it's phony.
I was going to say, you're a lot nicer than I am. Because I get sometimes there's like an AI stamp, and it says fake AI BS.
Oh, yeah.
And people will post that under my photos. And then, so I'm not very nice about it, because I'm like, nothing I do is, generate. I'm not just typing stuff in. I'm out there with a camera. But I did want to say one thing that I think is going to happen with this, and it's for photographers, it's print sales. Because soon there's going to be photos out there that exist, or photos, but, AI generated stuff that's going to blow our stuff away.
Yeah.
And it's going to probably look very similar to the real locations, but just amazing. And so I see that coming down as something that's going to negatively impact a lot of people who take photos. But I will say that I think that something that will be good about it, and something that I've noticed about photography, I haven't been doing it a super long time, but people are more interested in learning how to create their own photos to hang on their walls in their homes. And I feel like for photography and making money and stuff, that's going to be a pretty big avenue for most of us, is teaching those people how to take those photos that they can then hang in their own homes if they're not out, searching someplace to buy photos.
And I don't think anything takes away from, this is going to replace the actual experience. We talked about people coming in the Garden of the Gods, and we keep using that example because it seems to be very prevalent of all the faked pictures of the Garden of the Gods, that people come out here and they may have a different expectation based on a picture they saw. But I think when they get out here and they find out, well, maybe that's not actually what it is, but look how gorgeous this place is. And I'm reminded of the most photographed thing in Utah, Delicate Arch, Arches National Park. It's on their license plate, for crying out loud. There are 6 billion pictures of Delicate Arch. But when you go there, there's 100 people lined up there at sunset because, going to your point, Jay, yeah, they've seen a bunch of pictures of it. But this picture I'm taking is my picture of Delicate Arch. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I've been there multiple times, and there are people lined up around that rim, elbow to elbow, yelling at the person walking through the middle of it to get out of the picture, that still do it. So, I don't want to sound like the doomsday machine, and I think my point here is, in having you guys here, is to tell people this is out there, and not to believe necessarily. I don't want to say don't believe what you see, because we're all posting legit stuff, and a lot of other people in our community are. Most of those AI-generated pictures, I don't think, are even coming from here. I think they're...
We don't know.
We don't know. They could be coming from China, Russia. It beats to Estonia for all I know. I don't know. Pick a country that nobody ever heard of. That's where they're coming from.
Well, you just mentioned that we're all doing stuff real, but you've also had photographers sell all their gear and sit at a desk and generate content, and they got really good at it, and they're doing seemingly very well. But again, back to Facebook monetizing, that's changed things for a lot of people. Luckily, I'm in it because I enjoy the sunrise, the sunset, and everything in between. Luckily. But if I was in it for the print sales, that's just not the way to go. Like Jay was saying, instructing people who want to put their own prints on their walls, that's solid. YouTube has taken a huge bite out of that. I know I taught myself on YouTube. Nobody taught me photography. However, my best teacher was always my last mistake. So you still got to get out there and do it, right? But anyway, just bringing up the point that photographers are leaving, yet they're not necessarily stopping being creative. They're doing it. They're just embracing it. So am I the old guy who's just complaining, or should I embrace it? I don't know,
Well, I think it just depends, because, what is your point of following a photographer, right? So, or an artist or somebody sharing stuff on social media in general, how else would they see it, right? It's usually social media. So, from my point of view, if someone asks me about my photo, I have a story to tell. And it's not a story you can take away from me. Like Jay and I have been out chasing the snow and the fog and the clouds, those are epic days. No one can take that from me. And that's a story that goes along with a bunch of my photos. Getting up early, knowing it's going to snow, getting up to the hill. An AI artist, the story he can tell is how far he put his fingers from the space bar to the Z, or the A to the enter key. What story is there?
Right.
So I'm not discounting that there's some people that actually process their images. There is an AI artist who's very popular who does that. It's not nature, it's just art. That's no different than someone painting on the wall, putting a painting that you're going to put on the wall, from that standpoint to me. And I don't care. So the difference, though, is if you do an art fair, right? If we're going to go down to Garden of the Gods and they're going to have an art fair and you're going to bring up 15 canvases to put there, again, we have stories to tell. We could tell you a story about all of those shots. If someone is a painter, they're usually going to have something to tell, because anyways, I've talked to painters. I've seen them. They'll tell you about their processing or something they're doing with the paint. What's the AI artist going to say?
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even stop at his booth. It's uninteresting to me. So
They're going to tell you that they stopped a few minutes from playing some kind of war game with 40 other people to develop a picture or something like that. And you're right, Daniel, about that. It is the experience. And even the painter, you'll go into the Garden of the Gods and you'll see painters with their easels set up, and they have a different interpretation of it. And some of us had a conversation a couple of days ago about the painter doesn't necessarily capture it exact. It's their interpretation of it. Yeah, but they're standing there looking at it. And they're not just, I don't think you expect the same thing. But you're right to your point that it is another form of art.
Sure.
Just like our stuff is and the AI is. And I guess my thing for the listeners are, when you see Daniel or Jay or Jason or myself or any of the other really good photographers out here. I keep throwing myself in there. I'm not one of those people. I'm self-taught. I'm self-taught, and it often shows that read the story that goes with it. And Jason is good about posting videos of him standing next to the $5 billion star motel on wheels, his truck out there, freezing his ass off, taking the picture. If you ever have any questions about whether that picture that he posted with that is real, well, here's the video of him freezing his tuchus off out there, taking the picture. And I think that I see that maybe the way we present our photography might change. Where here's the picture, and used to be that was good enough. You posted a picture, everybody loved it. Now it's the picture and the story that goes with it.
I think not everyone appreciates that, but there are people that do.
Yeah. So. And I think maybe more and more people will appreciate that. How did you, for Jay, for your point about somebody comes to you and wants to learn how to take a picture of Garden of the Gods, part of the story might be, well, here's how you do it. And then they have a story to go back and tell.
Usually that story will start. You need to be up very early and get here to the park when nobody else is here standing in your photo and hope for good light.
Right.
But that's what we go through also, just all of us that take photos. It's all about light. It's there's sacrifice involved because you're always getting up very early or staying out too late. And that's just part of what we do. But that's also what makes it special because you're putting in that effort. And that's how you can get these amazing looking real photos. Now, obviously there's other avenues if you want to just type in on your keyboard there, but that's kind of what we do, and that's what makes it special. So,
yeah. So bringing it back to AI, the painter out at Garden of the Gods with the easel, and you see their painting after, you don't really and never really have. I don't think I have expected perfection. However, with the photograph, you expect it to be more of a snapshot in time. That is how it was. And that's been the expectation for so long. Well, now that expectation doesn't exist. It's almost like we're in the painter's role now, because now people are looking at a snapshot in time that isn't necessarily a snapshot in time.
Yeah, I think photography's always been more documentary, where painting has been more interpretive. My previous career doing crime scene investigations, arson investigations, we took a lot of pictures. We were forbidden from manipulating anything. We couldn't touch those pictures. If I was walking around with the camera and I shot a picture of my foot, that picture of my foot became evidence. We couldn't delete anything. Everything had to go in. So I was initially started out as like, you couldn't touch a darn thing. Everything, and we've developed, my art had to be separate from my documentary type stuff. Yeah, we did expect that to be documentary. It's an interesting thing that we're facing here. We're facing this big change. It happened so fast. Last summer, there was like the picture of the kissing camels through the Siamese twins. Impossible. Even if it just doesn't exist. There's no way to do that. But there was a picture, and it looked pretty good. But as this winter has progressed, as fast as technology goes, it has gotten better and better and better. Every day we see more and more pictures out there. So I don't know, is this the end of photography? I mean, somebody has to initially take those pictures to begin with that are used to generate stuff. Is this the end of photography, or what do you guys think? So I'm not trying to be gloom and doom. I'm actually looking for a positive out of this.
Like I said earlier, I think my personal opinion is that it's going to be what we make of it, like for you. So generally for the industry, I mean, there's going to be all kinds of different things. So like product photography, like right now you can go make product photography. Magazines are just using that kind of stuff. Advertisers for AI generated product photography. You don't actually need to shoot stuff anymore. Maybe you need a logo. Oh, we can just put that on there. So there's kind of things like that. So I don't do that kind of photography. The kind of stuff that we do, I think again, it's going to just be dependent on the audience that you build and where you want to take it. So I don't think it's, necessarily, I don't think what we're doing is going away. The experiences that Jay was mentioning, you're not going to stop people from going outside wanting to capture the moment. Many times people have come to buy prints from me because they went to some place, like let's say Glacier National Park, and their photos didn't look as good as mine, and they want something that's a little more artistic and represents the spot that they're going to hang on their wall. Like that's not. I don't think that's going to stop.
Right.
Like I don't. Like even today. So my thing is, I think that AI is going to have some kind of point of like negative effect. I heard someone talk about it, saying it was like a hangover effect. Because everyone's getting a lot of dopamine hit, right? They're just scrolling through, seeing all this new stuff, and then at some point it's gonna have some negative effect where people are like, man, I want authentic stuff. And I think when that happens, and if we're still around shooting, like, hey, we're still here. So I think it'll come back again. I think it'll have to level out in the future, but there's so much stuff changing right now. I don't know where that is yet. So right. I don't do this for that. So like it'll have to stay for me. It'll be a personal journey and see what happens.
Yeah, I think what might happen, you talk about the hangover effect, Daniel, is that people are going to start seeing these fake pictures of Garden of the Gods or Glacier or wherever, and they're going to go out there and they're going to realize that's not actually what it is. And that I think that when they get that skepticism in there, that maybe that's when the AI backs off a little bit, because people start to realize that this is all fake stuff and it's being misrepresented. I don't know. I'm not sure where this goes from here. It's going to be interesting. I don't think. I've heard people say this is the end of photography. I don't think it is. I really don't believe it is. I think enough people want to go out there. Every time Apple comes out with a new phone, the biggest thing is not about how good a phone call it makes. It's how good the camera is. So people still want to go out there and take their own pictures.
Yeah, I was just going to say, too, like I think as far as photography goes, I think we're all good. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the feedback that you see on a lot of these AI photos, it's not good feedback.
Right.
Everybody is upset by that, and nobody really is accepting of it and liking it more than seeing our actual pictures.
Right.
Just some people can't tell the difference. So I think that we're good, and I mean, as it stands right now, I feel like generally people don't care for the AI photos. And so I don't really see a shift coming in that where people are going to begin liking them more than real stuff. It's just going to be harder for them to tell. So I think for us in our space, I think we're going to be okay. It's just we're going to be competing with, stuff that's harder to tell that it's fake.
Exactly. It is going to get harder to tell that it's fake. But what isn't going to change is just what we were talking about earlier. I've been going through all my images over the past couple of days, redoing my website behind the scenes. And I didn't realize it, but it's going to take me 3 full days working nonstop to go through the images that are just on my website. That's not all the images I've taken. That's just the ones that are on my website. And it occurred to me, I know exactly where I was, when I was, for every single image. The keyboard warriors don't know where they were, what they were doing when they created the image. There's no story there like Daniel was saying. So that's not going away no matter how good the AI gets.
I think the one thing that I would tell people that if you look at an image of Garden of the Gods and you're wondering, is this a real image of Garden of the Gods? Google Garden of the Gods. If that's the only picture you see that looks like that, that's probably a fake picture, because the Garden of the Gods, as beautiful as it is, and there are a number of different angles and different places to shoot from, those rocks are always the same. Pikes Peak is always in the same general location. It's always to the west of Garden of the Gods. It's always between these two rock formations that are always on the same side. If you're looking at it, those things stay the same entirely. So if you look at a picture and it's the only picture like that of Garden of the Gods, and none of the other pictures you look at look like that, that's probably a good indication that that person did not take a real picture. So that means that either one of us at this table or any of the other photographers out there actually shot their pictures of the real thing. Because, again, I'm not saying we all take the same picture, all our pictures look alike, but it's only so big, and the perspectives are all the same, and the rocks are always in the same position. They don't move around. We don't go out there in the middle of the night and take a tow truck and move them from one spot to the other or turn around. They're always from the same spot. So for the listener, the person out there curious if it's a faked image, if that's the only one you see that says Garden of the Gods and has kangaroos in it, then it's probably not the real thing.
Yeah, you mentioned people having an expectation when they show up and having that expectation either met or not. With AI getting better, that expectation is just going to be met. No matter if it's a real photo or if it's an AI photo, if somebody's going to travel to go see an area, the AI photo is going to be as good as our photos. The only thing missing is the experience, right? So the person that flies out shouldn't be left in the cold thinking that they're going to see something else. I get what you're saying about, hey, if this is one standoff image, it obviously is fake. That's just what I think is going to go away. I think that standoff image is going to be gone.
Yeah, that's what and that's kind of was getting back to earlier, that maybe we get to a point where people get so saturated with the phony images that eventually they say, this is all BS. I know the good pictures, and maybe AI dooms itself by being so prolific out there. I'm not using the right word, but so much out there that people eventually realize that it's just computer-generated garbage.
So one of the things I was thinking about that was that I was literally watching the sunset, and it's cresting over the foothills, and I'm thinking, well, this is a real sunset. I'm obviously thinking about this conversation, and the idea was, if I took a picture of that and shared it online, it's not real. To anyone else, that didn't happen. They did not see what I saw. Those pixels on the screen are still fake to them. Like, no matter what it is, even if it's a photo, even if it's like a film photo reproduced for, Facebook or something. So in all actuality, people are always going to be looking at fake pixels unless they get out. Unless they actually get out with us, you go do the shoots, like actually have a real experience. And so again, I think that's where a lot of the value is. But like at the end of the day, I think this is one reason that AI has been so prolific on social media is what I'm saying. They're conditioned to see fake pixels on the screen. Like, they're not real. They're not seeing the sunsets that we're seeing. There's no way. I mean, it is what it is. So
right.
So I don't know that it's going to go away or change that much necessarily. We'll see what happens, but because I think what Jason's saying is that AI is going to get better, and that they're not going to be able to tell the difference. To your point, like, they're not going to be like 15 rocks at Garden of the Gods in the photos anymore. It's just going to be the exact same ones, just with this crazy sky or whatever it is, or fall colors, like a whole forest of fall colors. But people won't know the difference, and they won't care. And I maybe, who knows where? That's the thing. We don't know where it's going to go.
Right.
But the things we know that can't get taken away is we went out there. We did the shoot. We taught somebody how to do it, and they were there, and they put the photo up on their wall. So
Excellent. Great conversation, guys. We have to wrap this up. Let's, let's tell everybody how they can find you guys, like on social media. I'll start off with you, Daniel, since you have the mic in front of you. Give me your website, your social media. How can people find you so they can look at real pictures?
There you go. DanielForsterPhotography.com. On Facebook, Daniel Forster Photography, and Instagram, Daniel Scott Photo.
Excellent. And Jay?
Awesome. So just Jae Jarratt Photography on Facebook, and then Fiddy280, an ode to Denver, on Instagram, and that's FIDDY_TWO_EIGHTY.
So mine's pretty easy. It's just my name on Instagram or Facebook. And come on over. Jason Fazio. And come on over to our Facebook group also. We got Picture Perfect Colorado. You'll find all three of us in the same spot.
4 of us. I'm in there.
Oh, yeah.
I put pictures in there. Guys, thanks a lot for being a part of this conversation. It's really a good conversation. I don't think we're going to change anybody's mind, but I think it's probably going to increase some awareness about what's going on out there. And if you're somebody visiting here, if you want to know what a true picture of Garden of the Gods looks like, check on any one of the 4 of us. If it's like somebody who's like writing from Mongolia or something, probably not the real picture.
Or come out and shoot with us.
Yeah.
We'll gladly take you out shooting.
Jay does photography lessons at Garden of the Gods. He'll be happy to take you out.
I do.
There you go. And with that, we're going to carry on. We're going to pick up the rest of this conversation with Melissa Williams from Visit COS, the tourism arm of the city, and we're going to talk about how they're going to manage people's expectations in the world of AI. For the second half of this podcast about artificial intelligence and photography, and we're going to carry over to how it affects people's expectations when they come visit, I have Melissa Williams, who is the Director of Marketing for Visit Colorado Springs, also known as Visit COS, and that's the kind of the tourism arm of the city of Colorado Springs. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to nerd out about AI.
Yeah, we nerd out about AI. I've talked to some photographers. I'm a photographer myself, and there is AI artificial intelligence manipulated pictures that are out there. And, not all AI is bad. And we've talked about that, how, if you're using an AI tool to fix a noisy picture, which happens if you underexpose it, or you're sharpening a picture that maybe didn't quite get the focus. I don't think anybody has an issue with that. You have a picture, but there are pictures floating around out there now, and it's happened over the last several months. It just blew up over the winter, where somebody will put a picture on social media. They'll say it's Garden of the Gods, for example, one of our number one tourist spot probably in the entire state, right out of, not too far down the road from us here. We're downtown. And everybody who lives here goes, that is not the Garden of the Gods. Mm-hmm. That road doesn't exist. You added a rock. You took out a rock. I saw a picture of the Maroon Bells up in, out in the western part of the state, and we only had one of the bells. And the lake that was in front of it wasn't the lake that's actually in front of it.
And how did Garden of the Gods get in there?
And there was one picture floating around that had elephants in Garden of the Gods. I'm pretty sure they've never escaped from the zoo, and there've never been elephants in Garden of the Gods. So the concern is that I have, and what I wanted to talk to you about is what happens when a visitor, somebody who's not here and doesn't know that that's not actually what one of our tourism spots looks like, comes out here and expects to see that. And maybe they come into the visitor center here and say, show me where this is. Or they go to the Garden of the Gods and they drive around and can't find it, and they go to the visitor center there and say, where is this? And I know this happens fast. I mean, this happens so fast. Last summer, this was not an issue. The AI altered stuff was so laughably bad, you knew it wasn't real. Anybody could tell it wasn't real. Over the winter, just in the last several months, this has just blown up. And the AI stuff is really good. It's hard to tell. So tell me what Visit COS's policy is. I guess we could start off with what your policy is here for using AI in, when I was in the visitor center here, coming in, all the beautiful posters and stuff you have, and the magazine you guys put out. What's your policy on AI use for photography that you use, and then we'll carry over into how it works with visitor expectations?
Yeah, so we have a very robust AI policy that we kind of finalized and rolled out last year, just to ensure that our staff is knowledgeable about this technology that's rapidly advancing every day, but also that we don't run into issues with unrealistic expectations. So our policy with AI in photos is pretty straightforward. We don't do it. We don't use it. Our landscapes are beautiful enough. They don't need the enhancements. And we have some really talented photographers and artists and videographers around the community that we really like to invest in and support to make sure that we're supporting them in that way as well. So the need to create and generate images for our organization, there's just not a good case for it. Now, we do have a caveat that if you're doing maybe a designed piece, perhaps there's a piece of trash or a trash can in the foreground that you want to get rid of, or you want to expand the sky in a photo to make room for text. That's okay. But when it comes to generating photos of, give me a family, mom and a dad and 1.5 kids running around like that, we don't need to do that, because those things exist because we are a very fortunate destination to have such beautiful assets in our own backyard.
You just go get a mom and a dad and a kid and a half and put them in the picture.
Yeah, we have just an amazing library of images that we already have or that we could go easily get, utilizing our own community that is just very vibrant and diverse, and these beautiful settings. We don't need to be altering them, and we don't need to be elevating these practices. So we're starting to see this happen more frequently on specifically Facebook. I think Facebook is the biggest offender when it comes to AI generated photos. I'm starting to see it come into Instagram as well, but they're not usually associated with a specific business account or an organization. They're usually like fan accounts, like beautiful Colorado or top places to visit. And it's really these accounts that are made to go viral. So they're going to do what they need to do to get in front of as many people as they want. And they know how to utilize the algorithm to go viral. And so that's where the problem is really starting to pop up. And what it's doing, and it's starting to sow some doubt in our own images that are authentic. We've seen people commenting on photos that either our staff has directly taken or a photographer that we work with has taken, saying, hey, this is AI, this is fake.
Right.
Because people don't know how to tell the difference anymore. It's gotten so advanced. And so we're trying to navigate, how do we mitigate this? How do we convince people what is real, what is not real, so that we can avoid having visitors come to our visitor center, like you said, upset that it's not what they expected. How do we manage those expectations? Right. And it feels a little silly to say, like, we have to let them manage these expectations so that it's not as crazy as what these AI things are doing, because we live in such a breathtaking, I keep looking over to like our backdrop. It's just beautiful scenery.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have this beautiful shot here at Garden of the Gods, Pikes Peak. It's a great shot. It does not need anything.
It doesn't. And so the fact that we have to manage expectations for that feels a little silly, but we really do, because like you said, there's these crazy images. One I saw particularly that you showed me was of Garden of the Gods, and it is nothing what the actual park looks like.
Right.
But the actual park is beautiful. So there's no need to create these. So it's kind of a weird battle that we're starting to navigate, that we're kind of feeling out as we go. We don't really have a policy in place yet of when it's appropriate for us as a destination to step in. We don't really want to be the AI police.
Right.
When it directly affects us and people are posting it to us, obviously we'll talk about it and correct things as they come, but we just have a very strict policy that we do not share anything that is AI altered or appears to be AI altered, just to be on the safe side. Same with our policy for drones. We don't use drone photos in places that have restrictions for drones, even if the photos are phenomenal. That's a lesson that we've learned along the way, and this is just kind of a new advancement that we have to consider as well in the same way.
Right. I get, I don't think anybody wants you to be the censorship police.
Right.
And my personal take on it is AI is just another art form. I don't care if somebody takes an image and manipulates it, makes it look like the way they want it to look like. My concern is that when they say this is Garden of the Gods, or this is Pikes Peak, or this is North Cheyenne Canyon, when it clearly isn't. That's where I get a little upset about it. It's like, but that's not what it is.
Like, that's my home. You don't know.
Yeah. If you want to say inspired by
the
Garden of the Gods, for example, then I don't care, because then you're hinting that it's not really the real thing. So nobody wants you to be the a censor, obviously, and we shouldn't be censoring anything. But is there a plan when this becomes more prolific? And I anticipate this summer tourist season, we're a year-round destination, but obviously everything picks up in the summer. When this is really going to be a whole winter's worth of people looking at these pictures,
right,
and going forward, is there a method in place or something you're working on where you can say reality versus AI? That's not really what it looks like, but this is what it looks like. Is there?
I mean, that's given me some good ideas.
Yeah.
A lot of it, to be honest, we're kind of taking it day by day because it is advancing so quickly.
Right.
And there's a balance between calling it out as it's happening and bringing more attention to it versus being reactionary to it. And we want to kind of have a balance to that, where we're not so late on the ball that people are like, yeah, well, this has been happening for a while, but we're not so quick to it or maybe insensitive to the nuances that we're calling attention to something that maybe sparks more, I don't know, negative dialect on our social channels. So we are really kind of, just taking it day by day. It pulls in, again, like the ethics of AI usage. That's a big part of our policy. Like, how do you ethically use AI, even from, and especially from like a sustainability stance and what that environmental impact is. I mean, I have some figures in front of me because I like to remind myself anytime I am tempted to use AI, that there are some implications that happen. So, I mean, the use of energy needed alone, it's 10 times more than a Google search. The water needed to cool it to train a large learning model is 700,000 liters of water. Like that's
Wow.
a significant environmental impact.
All the background machinery, the computational power.
Correct. And
the end user is not doing all that, but
No.
where it goes back to where it's all in
Yeah,
China,
but
probably.
well, yeah, they're building all these infrastructures, which they need to, but there's a lot of pieces at play where there's this advancement in technology that you need to be on top of to stay relevant and to stay efficient, but also be really mindful that you're not just using it willy-nilly and being really wasteful. And so we have all of these things floating around to consider, and then at the end of the day, a sweet woman from Ohio finds a picture of Garden of the Gods that is not Garden of the Gods,
Right.
and then we have to explain to her potentially that that's not right, but let us show you how beautiful it actually is. So striking a balance between how we get ahead of that versus react to it in real time, it's an interesting dance that we're doing.
Right. Like you said, it's a beautiful enough place that it doesn't need it. And I think in my mind, thinking about this is, yeah, that's not real, but go out there and take a look at what's actually real.
Yeah, see for yourself.
And go and see what it actually looks like. The problem I see with like Facebook is that those phony accounts, and they are created and disappear, and then another picture shows up under another phony account someplace, is that if you comment on it, say this isn't real, you just generated another click of which they're getting paid by
you just
Meta.
boosted the engagement.
Exactly.
100%.
So you're kind of stuck with, I want to say no, but I don't want to also, by doing that, help them, and nobody's going to care that I'm objecting to it.
And it's a strange time too. That's very uncertain in terms of, okay, well, what if I report the photo? Well, there's some policies that are being rolled back in terms of fact checking and those types of things within the Meta suite. So I don't even really know what that looks like.
Right.
In the olden days, you could report a photo for false information or report a post. That's still available, but for how long? Like what? So it's a very interesting way that we have to every day be reading articles, be staying on top of the trends of what is the algorithm pushing? Why is it pushing it? And how do we mitigate false information, not boost the engagement in ways that makes it serve more? It's a very interesting time. We're not bored, at least. Like I try to tell myself, at least we're not just twiddling our thumbs, because there's a lot to do and keep on top of, but it's a little overwhelming. This type of advancement in technology, like every few years something comes up where we're like, oh, this is going to change everything. AI's different because yes, but so much more. Like it is literally changing everything, and it's doing it so quickly every single day that we have our policy online on our transparency page on our website, if anybody wants to look at it. I have to go in and constantly update it to say, okay, so there's this new avenue that now you can go down with AI. How do we now navigate that responsibly? How do we mitigate biases that are coming in? How do we do it sustainably? So there's just a lot of work in play and keeping on top of it, and monitoring our social channels is a piece of the puzzle, a large piece of the puzzle,
Right.
but just a piece of the puzzle that we're staying on top of. Luckily, we have a really, really smart team who works on our social channels and is very knowledgeable and stays on top of the ever-changing landscape and rules and trends and all those things. So
I can't imagine how hard their job is to be monitoring the social media and to be staying on top of things. It's got to be just nonstop.
We kind of split the responsibility between the marketing and comms team just so it doesn't fall on one singular person, because to not only draft and create engaging content, but then monitor and make sure that, we're staying on top of everything we need to stay on top of is a huge undertaking. So we're fortunate to have a 5-person team that we can kind of divide and conquer different aspects of that. My heart goes out to those like lone wolves out there who are their whole like social media team, marketing team. Like you guys are
like me.
Really, yeah, Bob.
I'm president and only.
You guys need to start a support group.
Yeah, only member of the fan club, kind of a thing.
Well, we're here as a resource if anybody ever wants to lament or bounce ideas or ask questions. I am always weary of calling ourselves experts in anything. We're master of many, and
Right.
but
You guys do a great job. I
Thank
mean,
you.
obviously,
Greatly appreciated.
the stuff you guys produce is just awesome. The social media stuff, the ads, the magazine is gorgeous. I mean, everything
Thank you.
you guys do is really great. So last year, this wasn't an issue. Like I said, the AI that was out there wasn't very much, and it was really bad. Nobody was going to look at that and say, well, there's obviously not a freeway running through the Garden of the Gods. So there wasn't much that I'm sure that it had drawn some of your attention, but I don't think it was a big deal for you. Do you have something in mind, or something you're planning, or something already, maybe the wheels are in motion to get ahead of of AI, or maybe I'm overblowing it. Maybe it's not going to be a big deal. Maybe visitor expectations are not going to be thrown off. I mean, what do you guys think? What are you guys looking forward to in the next couple of months when the summer tourism season really kicks in? Where are you guys at with that and this topic?
I mean, I don't think you're overblowing it. I do think it's a big unknown, so I don't know to what extent the issue will be, but I do believe we are facing an issue of false information, false imagery. We're really just trying to stay on top of and control what we own,
Right.
what we share, what we amplify, who we give voices to. So staying true to our guidelines and our policies that we don't utilize AI. We do tap into local talent to capture these images. We go out there and take them ourselves. We amplify the people who are pushing out good, authentic content so that we aren't adding to the noise. Right. Hopefully that maintains a sense of trust with our audience, that they know that they can rely on us to give them good information. Maybe they see a goofy photo of Pikes Peak and they're like, well, let me go to this website that I know and trust, or this social account that I know and trust. So just hoping that we can have an impact in that way. We love collaboration. So with the city, with the cultural office, with Trails and Open Space Coalition, we like to make sure that all of us are staying on top of trends that are happening, be it social trends or technological advances like AI, to make sure there's a place that we can come together and say, hey, we're facing this issue. Have you seen this too? What are you doing about it? Because as a collective, we're a lot more powerful and have a lot better ideas than just siloed organizations. So that's been really helpful to be able to have these people that we can touch at different sectors of our city. We may have different focuses, but we all have the same passion and mission for our city, to watch our city thrive and be taking care of these beautiful assets that are very rare, that we don't want to take advantage of them. So making sure that we're all on the same page, that we're all aware of these things that are happening, and that we can share ideas and possibly come up with remedies for all the fake information and images that are out there.
Right. So I guess if there was a message that we were going to send people who may see a picture of Garden of the Gods and say, I don't know if that's really real. Mm-hmm. Can they send you that image? Can they say, hey, if I come out here, am I going to see this?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, people are in our DMs all the time saying, I'm coming out with 3 of my friends and we're going to be here this week, and what should we do? Like we do pride ourselves on being a good resource that is approachable. Like you can actually reach out and talk to real people. We are real humans behind the account. So please be nice to us too. But you can always, if anybody is curious about a photo, they can absolutely reach out. But I think the overlying message that we would say, one of our team members said it best. Someone asked if one of our posts was real or AI, and we said, well, why don't you come see for yourself? Like, if you don't know, come check it out. Like, it's beautiful. Here's look at our feed, look at our website, look at these different accounts throughout the city, and see for yourself, make your own judgment. But yeah, just, it's such a beautiful place. You really have to experience it to understand it. And that's kind of always what we've said. And now that there's fake information out there where you just have to say it louder.
Right. I'm like I said, you don't want to censor anybody. I mean, obviously,
Right.
it's an artistic thing. I had a conversation with some photographers the other day. So, well, what's the difference between a photograph and a painter? And I've seen people paint images, and they're not exactly correct. I said, well, a photograph is you're seizing a moment in time in the way it actually existed. A painting has always been presumed to be somewhat interpretive.
Yeah.
But what is the difference? But it's for me, it boils back down to not necessarily the technology. The same debate was had amongst photographers when we went from film to digital. Oh my God, we're doing digital. We can manipulate things, and it turns out a lot of things people were doing on their computers was happening behind the scenes that they didn't know about in the
Right.
photo lab with some guys with chemists and stuff like that doing the same thing. Just nobody saw it. Technology changes. For me, it's more the dishonesty of it. I guess that's the thing that
Right.
irritates me the most about it. When you tag it that this is a specific spot, and it most clearly is not by any stretch of the imagination. That spot.
You feel lied to. You feel betrayed a little bit.
I guess that's where I'm going with the visitor experience and the visitor expectations. As somebody who lives here and takes pride in this city and lived here a long time and have participated with the parks department and stuff like that. I don't want people to come out here and be disillusioned or think that they were lied to by somebody. I want them to come out here and say, this is as stunningly beautiful as I expected because I've seen the
better
pictures.
than I could imagine. Yeah,
Right.
that's the last thing we want is to have people come here and be disappointed. And as it stands right now, I would hope that even if someone saw an image that was altered or not factual, it didn't really show the destination as it actually is, I would hope that when they get here, they would still be really impressed or inspired, happy with not only the beauty of the area, but the sincerity and welcoming nature of the community, the amazing restaurants and activities to do downtown. And like the stunning scenery it stands on its own. And so I would hope that no matter how crazy maybe an image is that inspired them to get here, once they got here, they would still be pretty pleased. Maybe that's me being a little too optimistic, but I mean, the destination speaks for itself.
That has worked for so many years here in town that you come out here and you're awestruck by how beautiful it is. That has worked for many, many years. It's just now that we're kind of worried about this other aspect of it. Otherwise, if that wasn't the case, it's this picture we're looking at here. It speaks for itself. The pictures you have hanging up out front, they speak for themselves. Standing in the guard of the gods, looking at everything, speaks for itself. And you would hope that would continue even if somebody comes out and goes, you mean this isn't really it? But, well, it looks pretty darn good anyway.
I mean, for us who have been here a long time, like I've been here since the early 90s, and I'll be driving and I'll catch Pikes Peak in the morning, and that feeling that you get of just awe and like, I don't know, out of body experience, I'm hopeful that that's enough to carry people over when they experience it the first time, that maybe any disappointment of elephants in Garden of the Gods is overshadowed.
You should have seen that picture. It was hysterical.
You should send it to me because
see if I can find it.
I want to frame it and just remind myself.
Not only was it not Garden of the Gods, but it was elephants in a place that had aspen trees. That doesn't happen.
It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounded. And it was tagged as Garden of the Gods, and we're all going, "You have got to be kidding me!" I don't think that one really fooled anybody because a Google search of Garden of the Gods would have realized that that's not the case. Melissa, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I think I'm hoping that this does not create a big problem for you at Visit COS. I'm hoping that people see through the clutter and figure out what's happening, and they come out here anyway, and they have a great time, and they appreciate they look at this view here, which you can see every morning at sunrise. It's a beautiful picture of Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak, and this doesn't really affect them. And it sounds like you guys are trying to keep up with things that are moving at lightning speed.
We are cautiously optimistic.
And I'm going to trust that you probably have something in the back of your mind that if this gets further down the road, you have a plan or you're thinking of things to get ahead of it.
I mean, hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Sure.
That whole mindset. yeah, we're taking it day by day and just keeping a really close eye and pulse on what's happening, what are the trends, what are the advancements, and what are the implications of these advancements?
Right.
What different sectors does it touch, from our outdoor spaces to jobs to sustainability? Like the ripple effects go really far.
Sure.
So it's very, very interesting.
So before we wrap up here, what is the website people can come to find out more about Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region?
It is visitcos.com. We also have a podcast that our team does here with our president and CEO, Doug Price, called Peak into COS. It's a fun conversational podcast with local business owners and people within the community, kind of telling the story behind their business or what brought them to Colorado Springs. That's pretty fun. So check that out too while you're at it.
Cool. And on social media?
Social media, we are Visit COS across all handles. We are mostly on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, at least for now.
For the time being.
See. Again, cautiously optimistic.
Yep.
But yeah, we'd love to see y'all on there and follow along and send us questions you have, photos that you want the receipts for. We're happy to chime in where we can.
Mm-hmm. So any of those social media links, if you DM them, you're going to see them, or somebody here will see them?
Yeah, someone on our team, a human, will see them and will respond. And we're all in this together.
I think that's pretty awesome. You guys are actually real people actually looking at that stuff. So much of that stuff is done artificially behind the scenes and stuff like that. Well, folks, if you're listening to this, if you're thinking about coming out here, I guess my suggestion would be, if you see a picture and it says Garden of the Gods, Google Garden of the Gods, and if you don't see that same image somewhere else, it's probably a fake image. I will tell you that there are many views of Garden of the Gods, and some of us who've been here a while have found different views, but they all pretty much have the same features in them. So if you see a feature that one picture has that nobody else has, they didn't find a secret spot. That picture's probably going to be altered in some way.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the best advice I can give to people. Melissa Williams, Director of Marketing for Visit Colorado Springs, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.
For your input, for being on here, and hopefully we can get ahead of this and
stay tuned. We'll see.
We should do this in the fall or next winter and say, how did it go?
Yeah, maybe with a couple of beers next time.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Like and Bob podcast. We'll talk to you next time.